Welcome to hashtag Mom Squad. Diagnosis?
Mom Polar.
If you missed last week's video, don't forget to check it out and make sure that you like and subscribe.
I'm Carrie.
I'm Candace.
I'm Kendra.
I'm Tabitha.
And I'm Caitlin, and I will be your moderator tonight. Tonight we are talking about toxic relationships, what it means, why you should get out of them, and
Well, I think we first need to define what a toxic relationship is.
I think for me, a toxic relationship is any relationship that you're in, whether it be romantic or with friends or with family, or that hinders you from being the best you that you can be.
Right, and it also has to do with personalities. Some are different than others, and they might be polar opposites, trying to force a relationship which wouldn't work out because they're opposites.
It doesn't mean that they're bad or that you're bad. It just means that your personalities clash.
Yeah.
And that relationship becomes toxic based on that personality.
Yeah. Well, I know we've experienced a toxic relationship. We met this girl. She was like 7-8 months pregnant, and they needed some help. And so me and my husband, we kind of gave them some a space to kind of live for a while. And then she had the baby, and she lived with you.
Right.
Her and her boyfriend lived with you for a couple of weeks. I think it was like 2 weeks. And
Just to get them on their feet.
right,
Yeah.
right. They were very young, and they didn't know what they were doing, and she was dealing with a lot of mental issues, depression, and things like that. And so I don't know. Do you want to kind of?
Well, it just, looking back on it, while you're in it, it was a difficult relationship to let go of. And I think that's kind of the thing about toxic relationships is a lot of times they're your closest relationships or relationships that you're holding on to the strongest. And I was holding on to this particular relationship because of the child involved,
Right.
because of this 2-week-old baby. But it was difficult to let go, and it got, I mean, more than just toxic. This one was a volatile relationship.
Yes.
This one became needing to call the cops and
Right.
getting them out of our
Yes.
house. But it was a relationship that had to be, it had to be dissolved.
Yes.
And yeah, that's kind of, the thing about the toxic relationships to me is that they're so difficult
Yes.
to,
Because you're invested.
Yeah.
You know, you have your time and your energy invested into these people, into these friends of yours, or even family members, you know, or even if it's a romantic relationship, you know, it's sometimes you don't even realize that you're in this toxic relationship, that you can't be whole and complete. And it's not until that you get rid of that relationship that you sit back and you're like, oh wow, like I can breathe again, you know. And you're just like, man, that was a bad situation and stuff. And so I think you need to be self-aware, you know, and have to really kind of focus on, am I being the best person that I can be, you know, or is
Well,
this
as
person
moms,
dragging me down?
as moms, we need to be the best mom that we can be
Yeah.
first. Top priority, we need to be a good mom. And I think a lot of these relationships that you get into that aren't so good as moms, whether it's with friends or family or, you know, even husbands or whatever, they suck you dry.
Yeah.
They are so much drama. They are so much maintenance.
It consumes the
It
time.
consumes you, yeah. And you have to know the boundaries between a toxic person in your life and just somebody who needs a little extra time. Like, I've had friends, I think it's funny, we all kind of met under these circumstances, right? Where a couple of you were a little bit more drama than you normally are.
Right.
But
right.
knowing that, like, I mean, I knew you before a lot of the issues
Stuff
came
out.
up.
Yeah.
So I knew that when you needed me, I could give you my all and not be like, does she really need this? Is this going to be forever? Like, I knew that it was just,
It was the time.
it was just a
Because
timing.
typically I wouldn't.
Right. And I knew that eventually, I mean, eventually I'm going to need you like that too. Like,
I hope not.
Well, and I
can't.
think
Well, not like
Not like
that.
well, and I think too that's like if you're constantly giving 100%
Yeah,
and
yes.
giving your all, where you know she will be, where in a little bit of time you need to give 100% to her, you know that in return she's going to give 100% to you at one time.
Right.
Like where you're not constantly giving her 100%, 100%, 100%. She's
You're
not
putting-
giving
You're
anything
pouring
back.
yourself in and not
Right.
getting any kind of
return.
back.
Yeah.
Yes.
And because face it, life is life. You know, we're gonna be hit with obstacles and so there's gonna be a time in your life where you can't give 100%.
Right.
You know, but I think that's a part of having healthy relationships and healthy friends is because you know for you, you know, you were at your lowest point,
Yeah.
and so you couldn't physically, mentally, emotionally give 100%
Yeah.
into that relationship, you know. And for Caitlin, she was in a good spot in her life, and so
She was
you know
able to
she
pick
could
me up.
pour,
Yeah.
could pour herself into you, you know. But then you got back to 100%, you know, and so now you guys are like, you know, BFFs, you know what I mean? And so like,
Yeah.
so you guys have that healthy relationship
Yeah.
still.
She came into my life at a point where
You were dealing with other toxic relationships.
I had a toxic relationship. So it's more of a romantic toxic relationship where I had been with the same man for 13 years, and honestly, 100% honesty or whatever, neither one of us were given 100% to each other. And some things had happened. I had gotten sick. He and I just weren't on like the same wavelength anymore, and it was just very hostile and very ugh. And then he decided to not come to me in the relationship and say to me, there's problems or we're just not doing good. Instead, he turned to another woman, and unfortunately that woman got pregnant with his child.
Unfortunately for you.
Yeah, for me. Yeah, you know, I have no bad blood anymore. You know, I took a lot of counseling from her and my actual counselor and a couple medications, but to get to the point where I'm like, everything happened for a reason. And I think maybe that happened so that we could grow stronger. And he and I are in a better place as friends and trying to just kind of like coexist in a world where we still have our kids that we have to think about. And so, you know, I wish everybody happiness, and it just happens, and it's how you
Well, I
go
think
along.
it takes a long time to get to
Yeah.
that toxic point. To
Yeah.
get to where
and it
you're
really
like,
did. It carried, like, I can say we weren't always toxic.
right.
And you
We
think
always-
too, like you said, sometimes, like I mean, and I have known people who were great friends. They end up getting married, and their marriage was toxic.
Yeah.
But after divorce, can still be good friends.
Yeah.
Like where it's just like in that relationship, it just doesn't work for
It's
that.
not a romantic.
Right.
Right.
Like where
Well,
you.
I think it come to play with what she said, or what you said too. Neither one of us are bad people.
Right.
We've made bad choices. There were
Right.
things that I maybe that I did to push him to the point where he was, and that he, you know, his mistakes, obviously. We're just not good together. And that's okay. That's,
Yeah.
you know, like,
Right.
no waste of time. We have an awesome kid together, you
Yeah.
know, and the baby, I'm sure, is awesome, but it's just,
And I'm sure, there are instances too where, you know, a toxic relationship when it's severed, and sometimes it doesn't even have to be severed. Like if it's
Yeah.
with your family,
Right.
you don't have to just cut ties like with you and your ex. You don't cut ties and just we never see each other again.
because you can't.
Because you can't.
Right.
But I think that there are instances where a toxic relationship is severed, and then you can come back and you can be two different people. I mean, I
Yeah.
think you change, and I think
Yeah.
toxic relationships can be
Can be healed
healed
and
and,
mended.
yeah.
Well, I think
But-
you grow from a toxic
Right.
relationship too. Like me as a person, I think I grew tremendously from all this because it helped me realize that it's not like our relationships aren't guaranteed, and you know it takes two people to really.
Well, and I think people
Grow.
come into our lives at different seasons.
Yeah.
And you know, I look at my life and I think, you know, that person was who I needed at that particular time in my life. It doesn't mean that that relationship turned toxic. It just means that we needed each other at that moment, and now we're in two different places, and it's okay. You know, it's okay that you don't have those best friends your entire lives.
Yeah.
You know, people come and go, and it's just, it depends on what you need in your life for that period of time.
Yeah, every friendship that is broken or isn't a friendship anymore doesn't necessarily mean it was a toxic relationship.
Right.
Or
Just meant the season was over.
Yeah. And there's been plenty of friends that I've had that we just grow apart. And being a teenage mom myself, a lot of those relationships were because they went off to college and I stayed here and had kids. And as much as like I look back at those years, and so I mean a lot of them I'm still in contact with.
Right.
But we're not best friends, and sometimes you have to know when to let those, not necessarily that they're toxic, but you have to know when to let that go.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's just toxic people, it's toxic situations that you have to learn to let go of too, because it's hard. The people might be great, but there's that situation that you're just like two magnets, like retracting from each other.
Yeah.
And so it comes to the point where it's like, what do I do? How do I do it? And as a mom, you automatically think, what about my kids? How are my kids gonna, react? Telling my kids the situation in hand that happened was probably harder than me having to find out and me figuring it out, because that broke my heart, and that was my breaking point. And thankfully, I had you, and I was like, you were right on it. Actually, I was like texted, and you're like, do you just like want to come over? Like, just come over. And so I came over, and I was like, oh my god. And so I needed that, and hopefully one day I can be that for somebody else. And I think that's when you're in toxic relationships or situations, you have to learn, grow, take away, because you never know who's going to need that, along the way.
Well, and I think that was one of the helping things is that, I had been, not necessarily in your position, but I had been I've had a failed marriage, and I had been in a relationship that wasn't good for me, and I had been depressed. I had been through all of these situations, and so coming out on the other side and saying to you, like,
it's okay. It's going to be okay.
It will be okay, and we will get through this together. That helped.
But I think we're good now. I think we've come to a point where we're all like, life's good.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Yeah. Any input? Yeah. You good?
Nope. Okay, well, that seems to wrap it up on toxic relationships. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, and we will see you next week.
Thank you for joining.
# Mom Squad Diagnosis.
Mom